Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are Critic Group 2 will present a case study on what CRISPR baby prison sentences mean for research. Firstly, here are some credits and comments for the previous presentation in which presenting group had delivered very informative presentation. However, the slides are lengthy and wordy, as such infographics are recommended and some of the information are also redundant. Secondly, Critic Group 1 had delivered a good presentation, as they also include different views on germline gene editing. However, they did not mention their stand clearly at the beginning of their presentation. Next, our stand, we believe that GGE, germline gene editing research, should be permitted for medical purposes but not for gene enhancement with proper ethical guidelines. Nevertheless, we oppose the human trial by Jantraz and his team due to ethical aspects. Therefore, we agree with both presenting and Critic Group 1. As mentioned by Critic Group 1, GGE shouldn't be banned completely due to its potential benefits that can be divided into medical and research cases. It is believed that GGE may have the advantage of preventing diseases such as single gene disorders, for instance cystic fibrosis. Next, polygenic disorders such as diabetes, because GGE can make multiple changes to a single embryo, and GGE can also spread resistant to infectious diseases such as Ebola, that the susceptibility is determined by the genetics. For research case, GGE studies can provide further understanding of early human development and genetic diseases. Hence, GGE is valuable research tool to provide knowledge and improve the treatment of diseases. Thus, GGE research should be permitted with proper ethical guidelines. For we will explain more on the safety, ethical, legislation, regulation purposes, and correlate GGE and HIV in Malaysia.
Next, we proceed on safety of gene editing. The National Academies of Science and Medicine (NASIM) report concluded that it would be fine to proceed with the modification of germline cells only if the requirements are met. It is important to prove that there are sufficient prospective benefits related to the risk of using these techniques before starting clinical trials. Another is that public should be involved in a broad dialogue about the use of these technologies, and a sound regulatory and oversight framework should be in place, as there are 10 conditions that should be met before using genome editing to alter sperm, eggs, or embryos. And they are: first, there is no other reasonable option exists. Second, the germline modification is used in order to prevent a serious diseases or conditions. Third, the gene editing is not predisposing to any serious disease or condition. Fourth, the use is limited to converting genes into versions that are prevalent in the population and are known to be associated with ordinary health with little or no evidence of adverse effect. And fifth, credible preclinical or clinical data on both potential risks and potential health benefits of the use of these technologies exists.
6. The effect of these technologies on the health and safety of the research participant are subject to ongoing and serious oversight during the trial. 7. A comprehensive plan for long-term, multi-generational follow-up must be done that respect to the personal autonomy exists. 8. A balance is achieved between ensuring maximum transparency and respecting patient privacy. 9. Both health and societal benefits and risks are continuously reassessed. And lastly, a reliable oversight is put in place to prevent the use of these technologies for reasons going beyond the prevention of a serious disease. As you can see, most of these conditions aim at ensuring that germline genome editing will be used only to prevent a serious disease, where no reasonable alternative exists and under strong supervision.
There are 4 principles of medical ethics. The first one is respect for autonomy. In other words, self-determination and choice of people are respected. The second one is beneficence, in which there are positive outcome or benefit from the actions. The third principle is non-maleficent, which is preventing or avoiding harm. And the last one is justice, by providing fair treatment to all. For this case, The previous groups had mentioned on the documents forging, which makes the participants' consent debatable, and safety concerns were also discussed. These issues may serve as the indicators for violation of respect for autonomy and non-maleficence. Regarding Dr. Munira's question on the limitation of technology advancements in Islam and nature manipulation, in our opinion, there is a limit since we are just humans, which is one of Allah's creations, and we are considered crossing the limit once we go against the Sharia guidelines. Similarly, on the question of why do we think Allah had allowed bad things to happen, the presenting group had mentioned on the HIV, for example, it could be a test or a punishment. Additionally, as human, we had limited knowledge that we do not know the exact plan that Allah had arranged for us.
Next, from the Islamic perspective, there are several principles in the medical ethics. This includes beneficence or ihsan, sidq, amanah, harm may never be inflicted nor reciprocated, confidentiality, justice and fairness, clarity and full disclosure, and last but not least, to respect the patient's autonomy. Here, we can see some similarities with the modern bioethics, but with a few additions. So in this slide, I would like to point out the principle of ihsan. The term ihsan means excellence and perfection in the belief and deeds. It also reflects the responsibility of doing given duties with quality and fineness. In terms of clinical research, in line with the general rule of beneficence in the modern bioethics, the clinical professionals are morally required to do their duties in the most desirable ways, in another word, with ihsan. So, in the case of Herjanku and his team, they have clearly violated all of these principles, especially on the principle of being truthful and not providing the clarity to the parents of the babies. In my opinion, if all of these principles can be integrated into the modern bioethic, I believe that it will greatly improve the current system, which are lacking in some aspects.
Now for the issue of man-made law, the scientist was found to act under the law of medical negligence generally. There are mainly two principal components to a medical negligence claim, but in this case, the focus is on the first principle in which the action must be one which fell below the standard of a competent medical professional. The procedure was irresponsible and failed to conform with international norms. Its flaws include an inadequate medical indication, a poorly designed study protocol, a failure to meet ethical standards for protecting the welfare of research subjects, and a lack of transparency in the development, review, and conduct of the clinical procedures.
Next is regarding the Declaration of Helsinki. This declaration has been developed by the World Medical Association, and it acts as a statement of the ethical principles to provide guidance to physicians who engage in any clinical research. As in this presentation, we highlighted some of the declaration that can be related with Herjanku cases. The first one is regarding the basic principles in research. In medical research of human subject, consideration of the well-being of human subject should take precedence over the interest, and in any medical research, it should be promote and ensure respect for all human subjects. However, in this case, he failed to work within the ethical framework of his own university, and even the Southern University of Science and Technology had dissociated itself from this clinical trial. The second one is regarding the risk, burdens, and benefits. In any medical research, according to the declaration, it should be conducted if the importance of the objective outweighs the risk. However, as what we all discussed, there are some risks regarding the gene editing, such as off-targets towards the embryo. And the third one is the informed consent, where in the declaration, the researchers must be informed about the aims, methods, sources of funding, any conflicts of interest, and the benefits and risks of a study. However, he did not provide an acceptable informed consent document, and he also failed to inform the parents about the alternative methods to prevent the HIV infection. Therefore, we can conclude that He Jiankui did not obey the Declaration of Helsinki provided by the World Medical Association. Next, I will pass to the next presenters.
Here we would like to highlight several guidelines of gaining consent for human embryo genetic modifications and implantations. First, the researcher need to understand the potential populations and their competency in making decisions. From the CRISPR baby study, there may be a risk of the participants being coerced by their disease. Secondly, give clear explanations about the research and avoid therapeutic misconceptions. For instance, clearly states that gene editing in embryo for producing HIV-resistant infant is unlikely and do not combine the procedure and risks of IVF and genome editing in one research consent form. Thirdly, use simple terms and language that is understandable to the participants and avoid the use of jargons. Clearly describes the known and unknown risks such as the off-target editing, mosaicisms, and secondary risks due to CCR5 deficiency. Also, the medically qualified persons must be responsible for the patient safety, such as by ensure the embryo to be implanted is of clinical quality or correctly edited. And besides, the participation must be voluntary and they able to withdraw at any time without penalty or loss of benefits. However, there must be a clear statements about the recommended withdrawal procedure, especially when the withdrawal may adversely affect the subject. In addition, human embryo genome editing should include long-term monitoring of the child due to unknown consequences in the future. Also, clear statements of the alternative for the research protocol, such as IVF procedure without genome editing followed by pre-implantation testing and selecting of healthy embryos. Lastly, for consent process, it is suggested to consider someone independent of the research team to obtain the informed consent. Also, it is advisable to conduct multiple rounds of the informed consents to give the participants more time to get their questions answered.
In the third topic, we will discuss about the correlation of the issue in Malaysia with focus on HIV and GGE. There are 77.9 thousand HIV cases reported in Malaysia in 2019. In this large number, more than 70% were among adult and 0.07% are among pregnant mothers. Fortunately, with a proper management and treatment to the mother, the infection in children has remained lower than 1%. Therefore, Malaysia became the first country in WPRO to eliminate mother-to-child transmission of HIV and syphilis. HIV test coverage for antenatal mothers has reached up to 95% with a seroconversion rate below than 0.1%. This wide screening coverage has been carried out in the PMTCT program that is consists of early detection, prompt treatment of ART, safer modes of delivery which is cesarean and safer infant feeding practice. In addition, the CDC has come up with the prevention strategies of using condoms, early HIV testing, PrEP for the high-risk people, and PEP treatment for the infected person. These steps has been provenly effective in preventing the transmission of HIV. Hence, the intervention of GGA are not necessary, especially when these strategies are still working. The Malaysian government has provided a lot of intervention on HIV prevention such as coverage prevention package, free ARV treatment for pregnant women, and etc. But is it enough? Actually, the most efficient way to prevent HIV is to treat the root cause of HIV. The study suggests that Islam plays an important role in shaping health policies related to HIV prevention. The only way to reduce prevalence of HIV is by going back to Islam. Muslims are prohibited to do wrongful sexual activity like adultery and homosexual as what has been mentioned in Surah Al-Isra verse 32. Besides, performing salah can keep us from doing evil things. Therefore, the counseling session with the high-risk group like sex worker and homosexual partner are truly recommended. All in all, regardless of what has been done by the authorities will only encourage a person to change, but everything starts with the man's intention. We can do our best to eliminate the cause of HIV, but if the person is persistent on his stand, an early plan is essential to curb the HIV transmission in the community.
I will be explaining on the cultural perspectives on GGE in Malaysia. Right here, we are only focusing on Malay or Muslim community since there are no studies conducted by the Chinese and Indian regarding their perception on the procedures of GGE. One of the common concerns regarding human genetic enhancements is the concern about playing God. The concept of playing God is rooted in the belief that no one has the power to create humans except God. Muslims believe that God is the creator of all creations and He creates humans in the best form. So, their perception regarding GGE is that if it is conducted for the purpose of treatment, it falls under the lawful category of changing God's creation, and therefore it is permissible. Second, concerns about the violation of human dignity, especially when it involves modification of human germline genetic makeup. Some view the human genome as fundamental for the dignity and integrity of the human species. The aim and procedures involved in the use of GGA need to be taken into account so that the human dignity can be preserved. If the research has a medical purpose while giving full respect to the subjects, then human dignity will not be an issue. For the next part, I'll pass to the next presenter.
My name is Syafiqah and I will present the suggestions that our group have suggested for the case of He Jiankui. The previous groups have already touched the suggestions in respect of He Jiankui. Thus, our group are focusing on the other aspects such as HIV-infected parent, society, legal bodies, religious bodies, mass media, and also future researchers. Firstly, in approach of HIV-infected parents, we advise the couples to seek advices from fertility specialists and genetic counselor, being open-minded and determined to accept the best solution from the experts. The couples also can opt for adoption a baby. In terms of society, they should never act rashly by being biased and bad-mouthed without any knowledge. Please be rational in every actions. Next is legislative bodies. The involvement of politicians who are expertise in bioethics, religious, molecular science, medical, and law are required to enact law, especially on germline gene research. The legislative bodies also must incorporate the Islamic principle in enhancing the current law related to research misconduct. The fourth approach is religious bodies. The religious bodies must improvise the guidelines and law together with the legislative bodies. At the same time, advocate the community on right ethical conduct of current modern technologies aligned to the Islamic conduct. In approach of future researchers, they are compulsory to attend the ethics training and education program. Besides, ask for the expert's opinion on research conduct. To the researchers who want to do germline research, they are advised to cooperate with fertility experts and also genetic counselor. The last aspect is mass media and social media. These media platforms are beneficial in educating the communities on HIV and germline germ editing information through social media, podcasts, TV program, and also advertisement. As an additional info, we would like to add the genetic counselor information. Genetic counselor is a profession that specializes training in medical genetics and counseling. They usually advise the medical infos related to genetics diseases to the patients and family. If the advancement of biomedical technology is so great, why the world has not yet able to answer or handle COVID-19 effectively? Interestingly, we are not using any high-end technology when facing COVID-19 and just going to the basic hygiene practices. In general, religions deal with human health and medicine. Rulings and principles with regard to human health and hygiene, hifzus sihah, are contained in the Quran, Hadith, Bible, and major Jewish sources. Islamic medicine developed further in the Abbasid period. For example, Ibn Sina discussed hygiene in his book called Al-Qanan fi Tib. The high-tech machine takes a lot of effort, money, and time to test for its safety and efficiency before use for clinical purposes. Therefore, COVID-19 preventive measure, we are going back to the basic. How the Islamic ritual washing, known as wudu, may help spread a good hygiene message. Islamic law requires Muslims to ritually purify their body before praying. At this time, Islamic practices that emphasize purity of body could help reiterate the importance of hygienic practices along with the use of soap or hand sanitizer.
Moving on to what CRISPR baby sentence meant to research, the first one is the deterrent of similar unethical misconduct, in which it shows China's strong commitment on research ethics as well as promoting the responsible use of research and technology. Next is that the public trust in gene editing research is damaged. Gene editing research could have been an alternative approach to disease prevention. However, following what has been claimed by He Jiankui, gene editing could be damaging if the baby turns out not to be healthy. Finally, it could result in irrelevant regulations imposed to similar research due to knee-jerk reaction. For example, in South Korea, this country has already banned research on embryos and the use of CRISPR-Cas9 technology. So, what is the future of biomedical research involving disruptive technology? Based on our readings, there will be enforcement of stricter substantial policy and regulatory restrictions. There will also be implementation of stringent evaluation on ethical and safety of any disruptive technology prior to its authorization. If stricter enforcement and stringent evaluations are done, then the disruptive technology could act as a platform that offers a novel approach to disease prevention and infertility treatment. Therefore, in conclusion, our stand are, we believe that the germline gene editing research should be permitted for medical purposes but not for gene enhancement. Nevertheless, we also oppose the human trial study done by He Jiankui and his team due to their negligence on the ethical aspects. In chapter An-Nisa verse 58, it explains that everyone is entrusted with amanat, which is duties. Therefore, everyone is under responsibility to carry out their duties accordingly and thoroughly. He Jiankui's case illustrates the importance of entrusting someone rightful. This is because a rightful person will ensure that every task that he handles are dealt with justice.